Imagine sitting in a dark movie theater in the 1980s. The popcorn is warm, the lights go down, and what you see on that screen is so shocking, so bold, so dangerous, that the government decides you should never be allowed to watch it again. Not because it was bad, but because it was too powerful, too real, too honest about the world we were living in. The 1980s were a wild, electric decade for movies. Big hair, neon lights, and stories that dared to go where no filmmaker had gone before. But some movies went so far that they didn't just make people uncomfortable. They made governments nervous. They made censors panic. They made audiences question everything they thought they knew. And just like that, they were pulled off screens, locked away, and banned. Today, we're going to talk about 10 of the most controversial sci-fi movies from the 1980s that got banned around the world. Some of these films became legendary cult classics. Others almost disappeared forever. But all of them have one thing in common. They were considered too dangerous for ordinary people to watch. So let's get into it. And trust me, by the time we get to number 1, your jaw is going to drop. Number 10 is A Clockwork Orange. Now, this film was actually made in 1971, but its real storm of controversy hit hardest during the 1980s when it came back to theaters for revival screenings. And what happened next was something nobody expected. The director himself, the legendary Stanley Kubrick, pulled it from British cinemas with his own hands. Think about that for a second. The man who made the movie decided his own film was too dangerous to be shown. The story follows a young man named Alex DeLarge, played by Malcolm McDowell, who leads a gang of criminals doing horrible things in a dark, twisted version of Britain. Eventually, the government captures him and tries to reprogram his brain so he can never choose violence again. And that's where the real question hits you right in the chest. Is it worse to let a person choose evil freely, or to force them to be good against their will? That question was so uncomfortable that people couldn't sleep after watching it. Kubrick paired brutal scenes with beautiful classical music, especially Beethoven. And that combination made viewers feel deeply uneasy in a way they couldn't explain. After several violent crimes were reportedly connected to the film, Kubrick quietly asked for it to be removed from UK cinemas. That ban lasted until after his death in 1999. Countries like South Africa, Spain, Singapore, and Canada also banned it during the 80s. But here's the thing. Every ban only made people want to see it more. Number 9 is Cannibal Ferox. If A Clockwork Orange made people think too much, Cannibal Ferox made people feel too much. And not in a good way. This 1981 Italian film, directed by Umberto Lenzi, follows a group of travelers who go deep into the Amazon jungle, trying to prove that cannibalism is just a myth. Spoiler alert, it is very much not a myth. What they find in that jungle is so brutal, so unfiltered, that it was almost immediately added to the United Kingdom's infamous video nasties list. But the violence wasn't even the worst part for censors. The film showed real animals being harmed on camera. In today's world, that would end a filmmaker's career overnight. Back then, it just got the movie banned in country after country. Critics hated it. The acting was rough. The script was mean-spirited and ugly. But somehow, underground audiences found it, passed it around, and turned it into a dark legend. Even today, Cannibal Ferox carries that reputation as one of the most extreme films ever made. Number 8 is Escape from New York. Now this one is fascinating because it got banned for a completely different reason. It wasn't gore. It wasn't violence for shock value. It was an idea, a political idea that made governments on both sides of the world deeply uncomfortable. John Carpenter released this film in 1981, and it imagined the entire island of Manhattan turned into a massive, maximum security prison. Crime had gotten so bad that America simply gave up on New York City and walled it off. Kurt Russell plays Snake Plissken, a tough, rebellious war hero sent into this nightmare city to rescue the president. But underneath all the action and explosions, the film was saying something bold and dangerous. It was saying that America was broken, that the government was corrupt, selfish, and willing to sacrifice its own people to stay in power. Eastern Bloc countries banned it because they thought it would inspire revolution. Western countries banned it because it criticized American leadership too harshly. Even the Soviet Union called it capitalist propaganda. When both sides of the Cold War hate your movie, you know you've done something remarkable. Number 7 is Videodrome. Long before anyone had a smartphone, long before social media was swallowing people's lives whole, director David Cronenberg made a film in 1983 that looked directly into the future and warned us about what was coming. James Woods plays a sleazy television executive who discovers a mysterious broadcast that shows real torture and real murder. But watching this broadcast doesn't just disturb him. It begins to physically change him. His body starts merging with technology. The line between what's real and what's on screen completely dissolves. Censors around the world were terrified by Videodrome. And honestly, can you blame them? The film's central idea was that violent media can literally rewire a human brain and turn ordinary people into dangerous, empty shells. In Germany, authorities refused to release it at all. In Australia, it was banned outright. In Britain, it was only allowed after major scenes were cut out. The film barely made any money at the box office, earning only around $2 million. But today, people look back at Videodrome and realize that Cronenberg wasn't making horror. He was writing a prophecy. Number 6 is The Thing. John Carpenter shows up on this list twice, and that tells you everything you need to know about the man. Released in 1982, The Thing takes place in the frozen isolation of Antarctica, where a group of researchers discover a shape-shifting alien that can perfectly copy any living creature. And once it gets into their camp, nobody knows who is still human and who is already the monster. The special effects by Rob Bottin were so disturbing that audience members were reportedly getting sick in theaters. Bodies twisted in ways that should not be physically possible. The creature transformed into things that violated every natural law. But what really made The Thing controversial wasn't the gore. It was the ending. There are 2 survivors left. They sit in the freezing cold, staring at each other, neither one sure if the other is still human. And then the screen goes dark. No resolution, no hope, no comfort. Several countries banned it, calling it too dark and too dangerous. Today, it's considered one of the greatest horror films ever made. Number 5 is Inseminoid. This 1981 British film is the kind of movie that makes you understand why censors existed in the first place. Directed by Norman J. Warren and starring Judy Geeson, the story follows a group of scientists on a distant alien planet who encounter something they were never prepared for. One of the women is attacked and forcibly impregnated by an alien life form. What follows is a descent into madness as she begins hunting down her own teammates one by one, driven by something not entirely human anymore. The film was shot on a budget of around £1 million, using creepy underground caves in Kent and Malta to create a real sense of claustrophobic terror. Judy Geeson's performance was genuinely frightening and earned her respect even from critics who hated everything else about the film. But Finland, Germany, Iceland, and Sweden all banned it outright. The brutal themes of sexual violence and graphic content were simply considered too extreme for public viewing. Like many films on this list, it became a cult curiosity over time. But in its day, it crossed lines that most of the film world wasn't ready to cross. Number 4 is Brazil. Here's where things get really interesting, because Brazil didn't just get banned by governments. It almost got buried by its own studio. Director Terry Gilliam released this visually stunning, deeply unsettling film in 1985, and it painted a picture of a future where paperwork and bureaucracy had replaced human dignity. A future where one small administrative mistake could result in your torture and death. A future that felt uncomfortably close to the world people were already living in. Universal Pictures was so frightened by Brazil's political message that they tried to recut the entire film into a simple love story. Gilliam refused. He went rogue, showing unfinished cuts to critics behind the studio's back. When the Los Angeles Film Critics Association named it the best film of 1985, Universal had no choice but to release Gilliam's original vision. Eastern Bloc countries banned it because its portrayal of authoritarian control hit too close to home. Even in Western countries, certain scenes of torture and bureaucratic cruelty were targeted by censors. The film barely made $10 million at the box office. But decades later, Brazil is recognized as one of the most visionary films ever made, a movie that saw our surveillance-heavy world coming from miles away. Number 3 is The Evil Dead. Sam Raimi made this film in 1981 on a budget of just $90,000. $90,000. Shot in a freezing, miserable cabin in Tennessee with a small group of friends and absolutely zero comfort. The Evil Dead tells the story of 5 college students who accidentally release ancient demons during a vacation gone horribly wrong. Bruce Campbell plays Ash Williams, and his performance turned this tiny, scrappy horror film into a phenomenon. The Evil Dead was so raw, so energetic, so completely out of control that censors couldn't categorize it. It wasn't polished Hollywood horror. It felt genuinely dangerous, like something had gone wrong during the filming and nobody had stopped it. It ended up on the Video Nasties list in the UK and was banned in Germany and several other countries. But overseas audiences absolutely loved it. The film made nearly $30 million internationally. Stephen King himself called it the most ferociously original horror film of the year. Today, it's a franchise, a legend, and a film school masterclass in doing everything with almost nothing. Number 2 is Silent Night, Deadly Night. There are controversial movies, and then there is this. When Silent Night, Deadly Night arrived in theaters in November of 1984, it didn't just cause controversy. It caused a nationwide moral panic in America. The film follows Billy Chapman, a young boy who witnesses his parents being murdered by a man dressed as Santa Claus. He grows up traumatized in a strict Catholic institution, and years later, he snaps. He puts on a Santa suit, and he starts killing. The promotional posters showed Santa Claus climbing down a chimney with an axe. Parents were furious. Religious organizations were outraged. Even Hollywood filmmakers publicly condemned it. Protests broke out at theaters across the country. People picketed cinemas with signs demanding the film be removed. And after just 1 week in theaters, despite a strong opening weekend, TriStar Pictures pulled it from release entirely. The movie was seen as an attack on everything innocent and sacred about childhood. Even today, it remains one of the most divisive holiday films ever made, banned or restricted in several regions. But here's the dark irony. Every protest, every angry letter, every picket sign turned it into exactly the kind of cult legend its creators could only have dreamed of. And number 1 is Hail Mary. Everything else on this list made people angry. This film made the Pope angry. When legendary French director Jean-Luc Godard released Hail Mary in 1985, he ignited a religious firestorm that spread across the entire world. The film reimagines the story of the Virgin Mary as a young modern woman dealing with an unexpected, miraculous pregnancy. It treated sacred imagery with a personal, poetic, and at times sensual approach that traditional religious audiences found absolutely unacceptable. Pope John Paul II personally and publicly condemned the film. Christian organizations across Europe and Latin America staged massive protests outside theaters. In Brazil and Argentina, the government formally banned it, calling it deeply offensive to Catholic faith. In Italy, the outcry became so overwhelming that Godard himself briefly considered pulling it from theaters. What made Hail Mary so powerful and so dangerous was not just what it showed, but how it showed it. Godard used breathtaking photography and quiet symbolism to explore faith and the sacred feminine in a way that felt too intimate, too human, too honest for those who wanted their religion kept at a comfortable distance. To this day, Hail Mary remains one of the most debated and most banned films in cinema history. And the fact that a single movie could shake the foundations of global religious authority in 1985 tells you everything about the power that film truly carries. So there you have it, 10 films that were considered so bold, so raw, and so dangerous that the world tried to erase them. But here's the thing about great stories. You can ban a film. You can burn the posters and lock away the reels. But you can never kill an idea whose time has come. Every single one of these movies survived. Some thrived. And today, the films they tried hardest to destroy are the ones people remember most. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these banned films surprises you the most. And if you love stories about the golden age of Hollywood and the celebrities who defined it, hit that subscribe button right now, because we have so much more coming your way. See you in the next one.